Hi guys, so today we're off to explore Kusadasi Castle, what you can see in the background there. So come with me and let's explore. Kusadasi Castle, often called Pigeon Island Castle, is one of those places where stone seems to remember everything. It stands just off the coast of Kusadasi on Guvercinada, a small island now joined to the mainland by a causeway. And from a distance it appears less like a military structure and more like a patient guardian rising out of the Aegean light. The walls catch the sun in warm shades of gold and pale grey, while the sea moves around them in deep blues and silver green flashes. At sunset the whole place becomes almost dreamlike. The outlines soften, the towers darken against the sky, and the castle seems to float between water and memory. There is something deeply romantic about the setting, not romantic in the simple sense of beauty alone, but in the older sense of mystery, longing, distance, and endurance. The castle does not dominate the landscape so much as belong to it. The gulls wheel above it, the sea air has worn its stones, and the horizon beyond it opens towards the islands and coasts of the eastern Aegean. Lovers walking the causeway in the evening often feel as if they are approaching not just a monument, but a story. The island itself, ringed with walls and shaped by trees, invites slowness. Every step carries the sound of water, wind, and the faint echo of centuries of departures and returns. Historically, the site is tied to Kusadasi's importance as a coastal port on the western edge of Anatolia. The name Guvercinada means Pigeon Island, and the island served as a natural lookout point in a region that was always connected to trade, migration, and conflict. Kusadasi grew in significance during the Ottoman period, especially from the 16th century onward, when maritime trade through the Aegean made control of coastal harbours increasingly important. Ships moved between Istanbul, the Aegean Islands, Izmir, and the Mediterranean, carrying goods, soldiers, pilgrims, and news. Where commerce flourished, danger followed. Pirates and raiders were a constant threat, and coastal settlements needed fortification. The castle on Pigeon Island took shape primarily in the late Ottoman era through the island's defensive use, likely reaches back earlier. Much of the fortification associated with the present castle is often linked to the 18th and 19th centuries, when the need to protect the harbour remained urgent. The walls that surround the island were built to watch the sea lanes and to make Kusadasi more defensible against attacks arriving by water. Some local tradition also associate the fortress with the famous Ottoman admiral Hayreddin Barbarossa, whose campaigns and naval power helped define Ottoman dominance in the Mediterranean in the 16th century. While not every detail of these associations is easy to verify in a simple way, the connection reflects a broader truth. This coast was part of the great naval world of the Ottoman Empire, and fortresses like this one were pieces in a much larger map of maritime strategy. Architecturally, the castle is modest when compared with vast inland citadels or imperial palaces, yet that modesty is part of its charm. Its strength lies in proportion and position. Thick defensive walls encircle much of the island, adapting to the contours of the rocky ground. The structure includes battlements and a compact inner fortified section designed less for grandeur than for vigilance. From its edges, defenders would once have scanned the waters for unfamiliar sails. Today, visitors look out over pleasure boats, cruise traffic, fishing craft, and the wide calm of the bay. But the view still carries the old logic of watchfulness. One can easily imagine lanterns in the night, signals from the shore, and the tense waiting that came before the identification of an approaching vessel. Yet it is precisely the contrast between its marital past and its peaceful presence that gives Kusadasi Castle its emotional power. Castles are often built from fear, but they survive into ages of peace and become vessels of tenderness. Here, walls once meant to resist intrusion now frame some of the most serene views on the Turkish coast. Paths that once served guards now welcome couples, families, and solitary travellers. The sea that once brought uncertainty now brings light, colour, and the gentle rhythm of tourism and leisure. This transformation feels poetic. The castle has outlived the alarms of its own creation and became a place of contemplation. The romance of Kusadasi Castle is also inseparable from Kusadasi itself. This town has long stood near ancient Ephesus, one of the most storied cities of the ancient world, and that proximity deepens the sense that the whole region is layered with civilizations. Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Seljuk, and Ottoman histories all seem to hover in the air of this coastline. Pigeon Island Castle is not the oldest monument here, nor the grandest, but it is among the most evocative because it occupies that timeless threshold between land and sea. It represents protection, waiting, passage, and return, themes that reoccur in both history and love. To visit the castle is to enter a place where practical history has ripened into atmosphere. The stones are not lavishly decorated, yet they possess a rough dignity. The sea breeze passes over the walls as it must have done for generations. In spring and summer, the surrounding vegetation softens the old defences and the island can feel almost garden-like. In the quieter hours of morning or evening, especially outside the busiest tourist times, the castle seems to reveal its truest character. It becomes intimate. The noise of the town recedes, and what remains is the meeting of sky, water, and weathered stone. If one were to describe Kusadasi Castle in a single romantic image, it might be this: a steadfast sentinel standing in the embrace of the Aegean, no longer guarding an empire, but guarding instead the beauty of memory. It is a place where history does not feel trapped in textbooks or dates. It lingers in the salt air, in the worn walls, in the silence between waves. And perhaps that is why so many people find it moving. The castle reminds us that even structures built for defence can become symbols of peace, and that time, rather than erasing meaning, can deepen it into something tender and unforgettable.